Well, finding a new matter to attack the government, Trinamool Congress MP Derek O'Brien, along with the Congress leader Digvijay Singh, together took on Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar. Derek O'Brien, in fact, even called the Defence Minister a bravado minister instead of the nation's Defence Minister. The two leaders have called the government of being arrogant for not accepting the arbitrary reference to the martyred soldiers, a demand made by the opposition.
The opposition actually up the ante. Nagrota terror attack was raised, but the government seems to not accepting a demand.
Well, the opposition today in the Rajya Sabha had a very simple request. I wouldn't even call it a demand. 25 of our brave soldiers have been martyred since the surgical strikes, including 7 yesterday, 2 officers and 5 jawans. So we proposed that there should be an obituary reference for these 25, including the 7 yesterday, and there should be an obituary reference also for the 83 people who have died since demonetization was announced because of the torture that they've been through. So there are 2 separate obituary references, but the government thought it best to dismiss this because this is a government, I think, who are now living in their own world, far from reality.
Why do you think that they have actually dismissed it? Do you think that it is because the obituary reference of people who have died due to demonetization, they didn't want to consider it?
I'm glad you're asking me this question. The government has deployed their full battery of ministers now to become their spokespersons. Please ask them this question, because it's not about the opposition wants to know. It's also about the rest of the country who wants to know that what is their problem? What is their problem? What kind of arrogance is this? What kind of hubris is this that you will not allow an obituary reference for your brave soldiers who've died since your so-called surgical strike, 25 of them, 7 yesterday, and for 83 people who've lost their lives?
So, one more question, sir. The Defence Minister, on one hand, you have the Fidain attacks and killing of defence personnel on an all-time high. And the Defence Minister, on the other hand, he has been speaking just out of the hat and speaking words of bravado.
So I think he should now be called the bravado minister and not the defence minister.
Continuously there have been attacks on defence personnel, whereas the government has been found lacking and the defence minister has been outspoken about the bravado.
Well, first of all, let me be very clear. The Congress party never does politics on national security. It is the responsibility of the incumbent government to ensure that the national security is fully taken care of. But still, I would like to point out that ever since Mr. Parrikar has become the defence minister, this is the 3rd incident where the terrorists have got into the residential areas of heavily guarded base camps, first in Pathankot, then in Uri, and then now in Nagrota. In the case of Uri, 1 brigadier was transferred, but no action was taken. No inquiry report has been brought in the public domain. Even if there was an inquiry, it should be brought in the public domain, and people ought to know that what action has the government taken against those persons who are responsible for these lapses.
So even as we talk, the intelligence reports have come out pointing out that this is because of the proactiveness of the Indian Army and continuous vigil in Jammu Kashmir that continuous attacks on the defence personnel and defence establishments are happening.
Well, if they were sufficiently vigilant, then this incident would not have taken place. Obviously, it is a failure on the part of the IB and the military intelligence, both, and RAW also, because all 3 have to share, and all these 3 report to the National Security Advisor. National Security Advisor himself, being an ex-IB hand, should have been more proactive in this, and it is unfortunate that 3 incidents continuously in the last 6 to 9 months have taken place, and Mr. Parrikar has utterly failed as a defence minister. Therefore, I think it is his responsibility either he should sort of own up the responsibility himself, or he should fix responsibility on others.
Let's go straight across now to India Today's Maushmi, who spoke to both those leaders from the Trinamool Congress and the Congress. Very strong words coming in there from Digvijay Singh, Maushmi, coming down heavily on the government, but seeking a discussion on the repeated suicide attacks against the army, against civilians and against the nation probably makes sense. But making a demand for an obituary reference when the combing operations is presently underway is perhaps questionable by the opposition.
See, clearly the national security is an emotive issue, terror is an emotive issue, and the opposition parties do not want to be seen coying away from the entire issue. They want to embarrass the government. They want to actually launch an attack on the government as far as terror ops are concerned, as far as continued attacks, Fidain attacks on defence establishments are concerned, and thereby in the Raj Sabha, which is more of a house that is dominated by the opposition parties in tandem, united, actually moved a proposal to put an obituary reference as far as Nagrota Uri attack is concerned, and that is why the government actually did not want to accept this proposal. They in turn said that because they had said that the demonetization issue was also attached, they said that 83 deaths during demonetization should also be mourned. The government is shying away from the entire incident.
Yes.
But that's true that politics over terror is not new, and each party wants to score brownie points over the other over the terror issue.
Absolutely. And Maushmi, okay, I'll speak to you in just a bit. Right now, we're getting some breaking news. Thanks so much for joining us and getting us those two reactions. But right now, what we're hearing is that the Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar has already demanded for a report from the Army headquarters seeking all details on whether the new order for tightened security was actually followed at the Nagrota Army camp or not. On 24th November, a new plan approved by the agencies had been issued to tighten security of the Army unit, and thereby now the Defence Minister has sought for a detailed report from the Indian Army on whether that was implemented on the ground. Gaurav joins us with the very latest now from Nagrota. Gaurav, first of all, just give us an update as to what really is happening on the ground. All that we know is that an extensive combing operation presently is underway, but tell us more. Tell us about just how this, audacious attack could have taken place in a highly fortified area like Nagrota.
If you look all around me, this is an extremely fortified area. You see the kind of deployment of army in this area. Of course, now additional security forces have also been deployed, but there is a multi-tiered security all along this area. There were chinks in the armor, and terrorists exploited that chink in our armor. The particular area, that regiment whose location the terrorists were succeeded in entering, goes on to indicate they had local supports, and from early this morning, the Jammu and Kashmir Police and the Intelligence Bureau and the local intelligence units, they are carrying out a series of raids and searches to get onto the local support that these terrorists may have enjoyed, because now both the army and the police have come to the conclusion that these terrorists couldn't have infiltrated from any of the borders along the international border or the line of control and then come 30 to 35 kilometers deep and then struck inside. They appear to have been here for some time. They recce'd this area well. They knew their movement. The fact that they were wearing uniforms which were stitched to their size, and Jammu and Kashmir police uniforms they were wearing, goes on to indicate that they'd spent time here, got their uniforms stitched, walked in, saw how the system worked. Perhaps they'd carried out a recce, because there's also a local village very close to where the army location was. So perhaps they'd recce'd that area and then they struck. So all of that is now a matter of investigation. Top commanders are also on ground. As of now, Avantika, there's controlled explosion of, blinds, explosives that have been found. That's being carried out. The weapons and all the other equipment that these terrorists were carrying, that is being very carefully analyzed, and not all of it is of foreign make. Also goes on to show that perhaps they either stayed here for some time in India, or they had local support that helped them with all of this equipment. So all of that is now a matter of investigation, and also there are some searches and some detentions that will be reported very soon.
Okay, stay with me. I will talk about those lapses in detail with you in just a bit, just to get our viewers about what really is happening. The combing operations, as Gaurav was just telling us, is happening a day after 7 soldiers, including 2 officers, were martyred in a huge terror attack on an army base in Nagrota. Negligence on part of the security forces is also coming to light. Security loopholes are being noticed. The Defence Minister seeking a detailed report from the Army headquarters. The barracks of the campus entry gate was unmanned and unguarded, and a highly placed sources suggest that there was nobody at the gate, which leads to the campus housing barracks and the officers' mess. It's also believed that the terrorists did have an idea of the spot. Just like Gaurav was mentioning, they could have done their recce before, and the cantonment area is on the national highway as well, which makes it extremely a vulnerable spot for terrorists to attack. Let's go back now to Gaurav Sawant for more on this. And Gaurav, you know, there's a saying that a terrorist only has to get lucky once. I was reading about this, and in this case, as far as India is concerned, there has been a repeat of such sensational attacks. What is going wrong where? I mean, there was a special audit of defense installations immediately after Pathankot and Uri. And speaking of the strategy, terrorists, even in those attacks, were dressed in army fatigues. But clearly, something is terribly going wrong.
You are spot on there, Avantika. After the terror attack in Pathankot, Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar ordered an audit of all military installations, and especially military installations in sensitive locations like Nagrota, like Jammu, like Srinagar, all across Jammu and Kashmir and Punjab, states bordering Pakistan. These are extremely sensitive. You know, top sources had told India Today yesterday that there were major gaps in security at this location, and terrorists, those who are supporting these terrorists, either they're overground workers of terrorist groups in this area, or porters or other civilians working in this area, or maybe, you know, the plot could have been even more sinister. They knew there were gaps in this area. Why is it that those gaps are not plugged? If the army had certain issues post Pathankot terror attack, why weren't those issues addressed? Now, these are issues that Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar has sought answers to, and Army Chief General Dalbir Suhag, you know, apart from ensuring that the borders are strengthened, also has to ensure that all cantonments are adequately protected, resources are available, material is available, manpower is available. Where is the shortage is something that has to be addressed, and addressed immediately. You know, apart from the attack that took place in Nagrota, there have been a series of other terror attacks that have taken place on military installations in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yes.
Some smaller, some bigger. But, you know, there has been a pattern to targeting military installations all the way from Kaluchak to current attack in Nagrota. What are lessons learned? The army needs to devise mechanism to protect itself better.
Oh, absolutely. And those are the questions that are being asked by the opposition from the government, especially directed to the Defence Minister. Gaurav, thanks so much for joining us. We'll keep coming back to you. Intelligence agencies have also said that the ISI is deliberately targeting army camps and vital installations and the convoy of security forces, so that the forces can focus only on the security of their camps and anti-terror operations can be stalled. Now, since last month, the Indian Army has been conducting massive terrorist operations in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, also remember that during this time, when the winter sets in, there's already a spurt of infiltration. There's already a spurt in infiltration with the terrorists getting into India, and due to which many commanders of the terror groups have also been eliminated. This proactive approach by the army and other security forces has come as a huge setback for the ISI. Sources have said that the ISI drew new strategies to target the army camp with the help of the Lashkar-e-Taiba and other, in fact, terror groups in Jammu and Kashmir. It's also said that the terror groups have targeted army camps and convoy in retaliation to the very recent surgical strikes that was conducted by the Indian Army across the line of control after the Uri incident. But unfortunately, what we are getting to see here in India is a political war on the recent Nagrota attack. And despite the speaker making it absolutely clear that tributes will be paid only after there's a confirmation that the combing operations are complete, the Congress claimed that it was tradition to pay tribute to the martyrs. The opposition, in fact, saw red and refused to allow the House to function. Congress even staged a walkout over the matter, with the Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi leading the charge against the government and questioning just why a tribute was not being allowed to be paid to the martyrs of the Nagrota attack.
पार्लियामेंट का नियम है, पार्लियामेंट की फॉर्म है कि जब भी किसी की मृत्यु होती है हम उनका आदर करते हैं। आज शायद पहली बार हमारे जो सैनिक मरे हैं उनका आदर नहीं किया, इसलिए हमारी पार्टी और पूरा ऑपोजिशन प्रोटेस्ट में वॉकआउट किया।
The entire country is insulted. The way Congress have behaved in the House, the country is insulted, the martyrs are insulted. The Speaker was saying, we will have a condolence motion. They just want to have walkout and then want to have a headline in the newspapers. That's why they are insulting. And moreover, it's a contempt of democracy. It's not contempt of House. It's a contempt of democracy Congress and its allies are doing.